What's up, everybody? Welcome to Move the Sticks. DJ, Bucky, Rhett with you. Buck, Rhett does have IU gear on, so
I do. Of course I do.
Ready to start.
We're going to brighten this thing up here.
I know. Yeah. We were having a conversation, DJ. I was trying to figure out why in 2025, the Indiana Hoosiers, who I've always known them as the Hoosiers, suddenly have a new mascot or thingamabobber running around.
I was just bringing him back. The Bison went into hibernation, and he was awakened by Kurt Signetti's 2024 season, and he's back now. Jumped out of a skydiving out of a plane into the stadium. So 2-0, ready to go 3-0 this Friday, and then we get Illinois.
Does he have a name? Is he
Hoosier.
Just Bison?
It's Hoosier. Hoosier the Bison.
Okay, I'm so confused.
That's all right.
Are there bisons bison that just run around on the plains of Bloomington?
I mean, nobody knows.
I'm just trying to figure out. Like, I understand App State, Mountaineer. Like, I kind of get that.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't
you'll get used to it.
By the way, if you're listening to this, Monday we did our first Baldy episode, so it's a nice little tape breakdown. So I encourage you, if you haven't checked that out, go back and listen to that. In that episode, we hit a bunch of games, but we couldn't hit all of them, and we promised we would clean some of those up today. So we're going to do that. We'll hit on, and again, not going to be long, but we'll touch on some of the other games we did not mention, as well as what we saw last night. So it's literally like the missing games and the Monday night recap. That's going to be kind of the flow and the feel for these Tuesday episodes as we continue to expand what we're doing. And we'll have tomorrow's episode so Wednesdays will be rookie draft. I know Thursdays we'll have a guest every Thursday. I believe we've got our buddy Mike Mayock coming on for Thursday. So and then we'll have some preview stuff looking ahead to games. So a lot of different things coming your way. But let's start first of all Monday night. Talk about like a tale of two games, like two totally different games. Especially if you look at it from the Chicago side of things, what they look like early, and then they kind of collapse, especially offensively. And then JJ McCarthy. And I've opened up social media while the game was on, and he was benched, buried, crucified, all of it. And then all of a sudden that narrative flipped real quick. Buck, I'll hit you up on this one first. Go where you want to go. But what's your takeaway from that ball game?
My takeaway is I get it now. I get why Jim Harbaugh has been so effusive in his praise over JJ McCarthy over the past few years. I've never heard Jim Harbaugh be so supportive of a quarterback that wasn't his quarterback, even though he was his quarterback at Michigan. I like whether it's on TV, our network, anybody that would listen, he was always super positive about Jim McCarthy was going to be special in the league. And what I would say is like, not that the performance was remarkable in any way based on the numbers, but what I will say is I saw a quarterback who certainly had the qualities and the characteristics that you look for as a franchise quarterback. His ability to bounce back from a very difficult first three quarters, pick six. They kind of had him handcuffed. And then in the fourth quarter, it was like he was the magical playmaker that would make plays when Michigan needed it in the clutch. And his athleticism, his passing ability, his overall calm and moxie, all of those things fit well. And as he got more comfortable, you could see why Kevin O'Connell had a clear vision for how he's going to play. It's going to be fun to watch him continue to grow, but man, I get it. I understand why Harbaugh was all in on the JJ McCarthy experience.
6 of 8 in the fourth quarter for 2 touchdowns, and the 2 incompletions. One was a batted ball, one was a drop. And like he was before that, it was ugly. The numbers were bad. I think he had more yards thrown in the fourth quarter than he did the entire first 3 quarters combined. Like that's how bad it was through the first 45 minutes. But yeah, stayed with it. And then, I think maybe you make too much of this stuff, but man, you see the locker room afterwards, just love on that dude and get fired up for that guy. I mean, like the guy making his first start, obviously ran into some bumps in the road, stayed with it, stayed focused and stayed in the game enough. And, I think that's where Kevin O'Connell comes in and is maybe even underrated as a coach, the way he kind of handles the players. He mentioned he talked to him at halftime. He's like, look, man, you're gonna stay in this game for us. We're gonna have a chance to win this thing at the end. And sure enough, he did. A lot of coaches say that stuff, but I think your connection with the players makes him believe it, because he talked about the look in JJ's eyes at that point that he saw, which was really cool. DJ, do you want to chime in on that, or can we talk briefly about the clock management here at the end? I know it's been litigated on the broadcast, especially if you're watching the Manning cast. But here's my question, because Ben Johnson mentioned the kick was supposed to go out of the back of the end zone, which would have brought the ball out to the 35 with the new rules, right? With the touchback. Mm-hmm. You kick it out of bounds, you're just moving it up to the 40, and you saved your. Why were the 5 yards so important when you could have saved 40 seconds by just kicking it out of bounds? That's the part I don't understand.
So my thought watching it live as it was going on was I was trying to imagine the conversation I would have if I was Ben Johnson.
Yeah.
Which would have been on the sideline, going to my kicker saying, this ball cannot be returned. Can you 100% guarantee me you can kick this literally through the uprights? And he says, yes. I would go, I don't believe you.
Kick it out of bounds.
Well, there's no, even if you're 99.9% sure that you can get enough leg on this thing to not only, it's not just like, can you kick it out of the back? No, they're going to field this thing on the back line.
Yes.
So it can't just like something that would land, a yard. No. This thing has to go a good 10 yards beyond the end line. And there's no way, you can't guarantee me you can do that. I don't care how good you feel, where the wind is, what have you. For 5 yards, I'm kicking this thing straight out of bounds, man. Just kick it out of bounds.
Well, and he must have. Otherwise, it's malpractice. Cairo Santos must be kicking him 10 yards out of the back of the end zone every day in practice. That's the only way.
Even so, I wouldn't trust it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is one of those things. Ben Johnson, in his first game as a head coach, he learned that everything doesn't go according to plan. You can map out these scenarios. You can talk about it. We can practice it in those things. But game day execution can be different. And for him, it's like what you guys said. Sometimes as the head coach, you just have to say, hey, I hear all that. Keep the ball out of bounds. We're just going to line up and play, because the only bad scenario that could happen
is it
happened for them.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just all bad, just a bad sequence and series of plays that cost them.
So on the Bears side of things, look, it was good early. That's a positive. We'll take that as a positive offensively. I'm not going to be Johnny excuse maker, but there were a couple horrible calls in this game, like holding calls that negated, productive, good plays that were Bush League, not great calls. One of them on the right tackle, which was the guy just kind of goes to the ground. I mean, he didn't hold him at all throughout the entire play. So I don't want to be the excuse maker, because there are mechanical flaws with Caleb that they have got to address, where he's got guys open and his eyes and his feet are not connected, and the ball, I don't know if he's overthrowing the ball, but the ball's taken off on him. And I know that's not an easy place to throw with the weather, the wind that they get inside that. I know it's obviously the Windy City. It gets very windy in there, but JJ McCarthy wouldn't have any trouble with it. So that to me is mechanically, they've got to figure that out. And watching the difference between the two quarterbacks in that game, it's oversimplifying it, Buck, but in structure, one guy looked a lot more comfortable than the other. And Caleb is still his default is to want to get the heck out of there and run around and try and create some things and make some things happen. And even that being said, there were a couple runs where he had, which were solid, productive runs, where just if he just keeps his eyes up down the field, there are some huge plays. After escaping, you did the hard part. Now just get your eyes up and you're going to be able to hit some huge pass plays. But then he was just kind of went and got his 8-10 yards on the ground. So there's still, to put it nicely, there's still a lot of stuff that needs to be worked on there.
Yeah, a lot of stuff that needs to be worked on. My thing is, can he ever become a more traditional player? Like, he's been able to get away with this for so long. It's really hard to change. It's almost like trying to change a golfer's swing. Can we change his thoughts, his process, all of this? Because under pressure, you go back to who you really are. And under pressure, when the game got tight, we saw Caleb Williams revert back to the guy that we saw at SC, who would run around and flash some great plays, but also flash some boneheaded mistakes, blunders, because he just won't stay on schedule. This is going to be a hard thing for Ben Johnson, because it was great 2.5 quarters. They were on schedule, on time, all of those things. They just got more time, more time on task to see if they can get Caleb Williams to play the right way.
I think one thing, though, you still have some of that signature Ben Johnson stuff in this offense, right? Like the play design at the end down in that low red zone, which I think it was a Dunze that caught the touchdown right at the very end.
Mm-hmm.
Same play I think they ran against the Bears last year with the Lions on Thanksgiving, which was kind of fun right there in the end zone. You still have some of the stuff that got you excited about Ben Johnson, right? So let's not throw it all out the window here. I know there's a lot of things they'd like to do a lot better, and let's see if they can grow a little bit and improve as this thing goes on.
Yeah, no, it was a big win for the Minnesota Vikings for sure, and give their defense credit too. They heated them up in the second half after playing pretty static and stale defensively in the first half. They got after it. Coach Flores getting loose a little bit there. All right, let's get to I'm going to go with this is our hot or not game here. It's time for hot or not, brought to you by Wasabi Hot Cloud Storage. So as you're looking at some of these other games that we missed on, guys, didn't get a chance to talk about. How about the Battle of Ohio, Rhett? Cincinnati and Cleveland.
Well, I got to tell you, I just don't think the formula for the Browns is to have Joe Flacco thrown it 47 times and still only put up 16 points. Look, I think the thing that I noticed and went back and saw and watched a little bit was the run game for both teams was non-existent. You take the quarterbacks out, and the Browns ran it 21 times for 40 yards. Now Sampson was productive in the pass game, right? The rookie, 8 catches, 64. That's a positive sign there. But even with the Bengals, like 21 carries for 43 yards for Chase Brown. I mean, I applaud the consistency, but you'd like to see some more production there. So then you went and looked at the defense. And if we're talking about the run game was not hot, the run defense was pretty hot, especially for the Browns. Late in this game, they had 5 tackles for loss in this game, 4 of them coming in the fourth quarter, and everybody was getting a piece, which was a lot of fun to see. Swessinger made a couple of big stops down there that kind of kept them in it. That was pretty encouraging. Myles Garrett, I think we talk about him as, one of the most difficult dudes to deal with in, the last century of football, coming off the edge against quarterbacks, but he had a couple big run stops too now. Like, let's not forget about that part of the game. The run game was really good on the defensive side of things. I feel like, especially for the Browns, they've got to figure out, now that Quinshon Judkins is signed, maybe he gets into the mix here a little bit, but they got to find a way to run the football a little bit better to keep Joe Flacco from dropping back 47 times.
It just can't happen. You just can't have Joe Flacco doing it. And I know there's a bit of nostalgia that led Kevin Stefanski and the Browns to take Joe Flacco because he led them to the postseason. But there's no way you could think that the same Joe Flacco is going to show up. 40-plus pass attempts for a 40-year-old guy is a recipe for disaster, not only in week 1, but by the time you get to week 8, he's going to be all tapped out. The Browns, I would think, would be a little more balanced, a little more focused on trying to run the football. Maybe Quinshon Judkins will have something to do with that. They have to balance out this offense because it cannot be the Joe Flacco show and expect this team to go well for the Browns.
I'll take it first of all from the Cincinnati side of things, because I was watching this and thinking of it in context of their division. And it's just so funny because if you watch the Ravens-Bills game, you came away from that. I mean, I know that the Baltimore Ravens lost the game, but there's very easy for you to imagine the Baltimore Ravens with the confetti falling, winning a Super Bowl, and they just lost the game. And then you look at Cincinnati, and it's ugly and just a rock fight, and then somehow they win that game. So one's ahead of the other in the standings, but you feel differently about them based off of that game. And I just kept coming back to last year, Cincinnati, they lost pretty so many times, where if you just look at the game from an offensive slant, there's so much good, and it's so pleasing to the eye, and they lost games. Like, the difference between teams that ultimately get where they want to go is you'd much rather win ugly than lose pretty. And that was a team last year in Cincinnati that lost pretty a bunch. And this was a great sign for them, where they did next to nothing offensively and somehow found a way to win the game. And it's a great sign defensively that Al Golden's got those guys, to me, all on the same page. That was an issue a lot of times, not just the talent last year, was disjointed, disconnected bus, making things easy. They didn't really do that in that game. So that was my Cincinnati side of things. And then, Buck, the other side of it, as we get to Cleveland, and I know my buddies with Cleveland will not want to hear this, but I know it's 1 week into the season, but I'm a believer in the bus theory. I want to know if I'm the Cleveland Browns of 2025, if I'm in that front office, I want to know who's on the bus in 2026. And I came out of this game going, okay, you know what? Samson, Rhett talked about him getting involved in the pass game. Harold Fannin, my rookie tight end, did a nice job, caught a bunch of balls. Like, hey, I got 2 seats for these guys on the 26 bus. I'm excited about that. I'm trying to identify young players who are going to be a part of this next great Browns team. So I know they lost the game, but I found a couple guys that I think are going to be good for us. And I'm excited to see Judkins now that he's signed, get him in the mix, because I have a feeling I got a seat for him on next year's bus. So I'm pretty excited about it as well.
I mean, you're not going to have a seat for him, but you have a seat for Isaiah Bond and some of the other young guys that they have available. Like, you add some of those young, fast, dynamic players, it will increase up the odds of your offense being able to score points because you have more speed on the field. The same thing, though, like you talk about trying to see who's on the bus. How long are we going to sit through this before we see the young quarterbacks play?
Yeah. No, it'll be. I think Dylan Gabriel is going to be next up when that time comes. But I think they're going to let Joe roll for a little bit here. To me, like if we get to the what we talked about the other day, like the Giants, that move's coming early. That move's coming earlier than this one. Well, there you go, boys. That was our Hot or Not segment brought to you by Wasabi Hot Cloud Storage. Store more and do more with your data. Try them for free at wasabi.com. All right, I had a chance to watch both sides of the ball and really dig in on this one this morning. San Francisco and Seattle. To me, I'll summarize it this way, and then Rhett, I'll let you piggyback it and Buck jump in there. But watching this game, I felt like Seattle had the better roster. I felt like Seattle was deeper. To me, I was just talking to my buddy Brock Hewitt about this, and on Brock and Salk, and it was saying if you just look at the team, like speed wise, the younger, they're faster. I love what Seattle's doing there. There's a lot of positives, and I can get into those specifically. The thing is, in this game, when you needed a play, Christian McCaffrey, star, made a play. When you needed a play, Nick Bosa finished the game. Game over. When you needed to play, Brock Purdy scrambles around and makes a throw. Fred Warner looked like he was 20 years old in that tape. He was flying all over the field, hitting everything that moves. D. Winters played great next to him as well. But I thought Seattle is a better team. They have better depth. They have better talent. But when it was go time, their 3 or 4 stars stepped up and made the plays in the moment that they actually absolutely had to have them.
I think that's a good thought right there. And, I think, look, for San Francisco, if not for the kicker woes, I think this thing feels a lot better for them.
He's gone, by the way, as we were recording that this morning. Jake Moody just got cut.
Well, there's that. Look, that was going to happen. You can't keep going on that way and not being able to trust the guy that you're going to count on in a lot of those tough situations. Another one, by the way, that I just saw is the Dolphins are signing Cole Strange off the Browns practice squad.
Here we go. Offensive line wasn't great.
No, it was not. Okay, sorry. Back to Seattle and San Francisco. So I don't know. I just think I have a different feel about the game flow if those kicks, which were virtual gimmies in professional football, went through. You're talking about a bigger, a wider margin there. Maybe it doesn't come down to the very end. The thing that was interesting for me for Seattle was the backfield share. Was that Zach Charbonnet?
Charbonnet's better. He's better. He's a better fit in this system. What they're doing, he's just better. He's more comfortable. He sees it. It works better with him. And nothing against Kenneth Walker. He's got his spot. I know he's been productive, but in what they're trying to do, he's not as good a fit.
Yeah, I think that's ultimately what it came down to here. Now, he got stopped a few times behind the line of scrimmages. I was watching it before he could really get going. But yeah, it almost reminds me a little bit of the Texans right when they made the switch to D'Amico, and Dameon Pierce had that huge year, right? It went for over 1,000, and then all of a sudden he's a ghost. Yeah. Not saying that Kenneth Walker's going to become a ghost here, but it wasn't a fit. And it's a similar type, of offense when you look about the transitions to both these teams. So yeah, I think you're right. I'm fantasy owners. I'd be pretty bullish on Charbonnet at this point.
The thing about that, depending on how the program has been set up, we talk about best players play. Kenneth Walker was the guy that, he was getting first bite of the apple given his draft status. But at some point, you have to look at fit and scheme and who's the better player. And right now, Zach Charbonnet is the better fit. So he does deserve more carries. I think what's interesting in making a comparison between Seattle and San Francisco and how we can talk about the Seattle Seahawks having a better roster, but the pedigree and the experience and the star power tilts towards the Niners. The issue that you have with the Niners, will the stars be available the entire season? Because this has been a team that has been plagued by the injury bug the last few years. I mean, really throughout the Kyle Shanahan era, like this is a team that is always beaten up and they kind of limp to the finish line, even though they've gotten to the Super Bowl. I just wonder, how can we count on the Niners when they just appear to beat themselves up and not have their best players available when you need them the most, which is down the stretch?
Well, Kittle's on IR now, so he's going to be gone for a while. And then you look at now Brock Purdy might not be able to play. You might be looking at Mac Jones this next week because he's beat up. Like there's a lot of stuff going on there where you're like, man, they've already been beset, with some big blows here early on.
It's like deja vu all over again.
It's brutal. But I will say this. I was curious, and everybody knows I like Sam, but I looked at the stuff. They didn't put up many points. Like, how did Darnold play? I actually thought Sam played well. I thought he did some nice things. I mean, at the end of the game, his right tackle gets thrown right in his lap. I mean, I don't know what you're supposed to do when Nick Bosa does that. But he was JSN. They were on the same page. They saw things the same. I thought he looked very comfortable and poised. I think the interior of their offensive line played well. They're better. Zabel in the red zone was just moving guys. He was impressive. For the Seattle defense, Leonard Williams was best player on the field. I mean, I don't know. He looks bigger every year to me. He just gets bigger and stronger, and he was a dominant player. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of positives to take from the Seattle side of things, and I think they'll get more in a rhythm and more comfortable. And there was also just some of these runs I think would have popped if they didn't have a cyborg wearing number 54 playing linebacker for San Francisco. He was goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Fuck, they couldn't cut him off. They couldn't get to him.
I mean, he's a freak of nature, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's a freak show at that position. His instincts, his awareness, coming off a year when he was squarely in contention for Defensive Player of the Year a season ago. Like he is picked up right where he left off. This is an instinctive, as you say, cyborg that just makes plays all over the field. As long as the Niners have 54 in the pipes, and I mean, look, their defense is always going to be solid because great defenses are terrific right down the middle.
All right, Buck, I'll hit you up on this one. Houston and the Rams here out in L.A. You get the Texans coming out here. Mm-hmm. We said it before. These are probably two of the most physical teams in the NFL, and it was a very physical game.
Yeah, very physical game. And what I would say about the Rams, having seen them throughout the preseason and then watching them play, what I love about Sean McVay is this is a team that can win, and it doesn't really matter about the style points. They are built to play in shootouts. They're built to play in grounded out affairs, and they have a coach who's willing to do it with or without worrying about what the playing style looks like. He is terrific in terms of his adaptability and flexibility and what they do to get out of a game. And even though Matthew Stafford goes over the 60,000 mark, which is crazy to think about passing for that many yards, they just have a well-balanced roster, and their willingness to play the undrafted, late round, unheralded players really pays off for them because they have enough star power to compete with the heavyweights, but they get the contributions from the other guys to make sure that they're always in games. And look, man, they don't have any glaring weaknesses.
Yeah, and then they come up with some stuff like we've talked about it on this show, like a few things here and there, a few wrinkles. They're so good at it. That offensive staff coming up with things that'll benefit them. Maybe not knowing exactly the situation, but it came up on the last third down on this one. I caught this one when we were doing Game Day Live on NFL Network and went back and watched it. It's just fun to watch. They use those receivers in the run game. That's been a staple of the Sean McVay offense really since, he came into LA, and Puka Nacua has never one to shy away. I mean, the dude went and got stitches like a hockey player and then, came back in later on and had a fantastic game for the Rams. So they bring him in motion on that final third down. It's a 3rd down and 8, right? And we've seen them insert right into the blocking scheme right in there, almost serve as like a lead blocker, right, on some of those runs. Well, they bring him in motion this time, and Jalen Petrie comes with him, right? And so and right in between the tackle and the guard, Puka comes up essentially like he's going to block. It is a big play action here. And then he just delays, releases out into the flat. Petrie doesn't quite see it fast enough. Stafford's rolling out, gets just Alaric Jackson on the left tackle gets just enough. I think it was either Danielle Hunter or Will Anderson. And Stafford makes a really nice throw, kind of with a defender in his face. And Puka Nacua was wide open down the sideline and then stays in bounds, right? Keeps the clock rolling. And that game was over right there. Just, great design, great situational awareness of when to use that, how to use it, and great execution all around. Just one of the cool things to watch when these guys are playing.
I got a chance to go back and watch that. It's funny because we talked about yesterday on the Steelers discussion of one of the Calvin Austin touchdowns, which was almost the exact same situation. And to me, you're talking about the threat of him as a blocker and how that can put you in a bind. Well, they didn't think Calvin Austin was getting ready to go up there and block somebody.
But Puka would.
But Puka would. But to me, it's not even more so than that's like the look or the run of it. What you're doing is you're taking a coverage player who's not comfortable or used to being in that tight, in the box with a mess of bodies. They're just not. You take rep after rep in practice, and you're outside, you're in the slot, you're in space, and then all of a sudden now you got to cover Puka Nacua or Calvin Austin, who's inserting in the Pittsburgh game. It was between the tight end and the tackle. In this game, between the tackle and the guard. That is, to me, is
it's a different look, right?
It's just like offense 101. Your job is try and make a defender uncomfortable. And you've got a lot of field to defend there, Buck, but you've also it's not a comfortable feeling for those guys to be in the middle of all that.
No, it's never comfortable to be in the middle of all those things. And part of what you want to do as a great coordinator, offensive or defense, is to kind of create chaos and make people have to live in their discomfort. And that's what we're able to do. And that's some of the things that we see. And the best teams are able to react and respond. The best players are able to kind of handle being in those weird moments, and they get you out, and they can make the coach look good because they figure out how to handle themselves in those situations. So it's interesting to watch it all play out.
Yeah. This was, again, rock fight 14-9 type game. I did go back and I wanted to watch the difference between Puka and Devontae to see, how the usage was there and what that looks like. It's good to be Puka, man. Devontae's got to deal with Stingley on the outside, going to war with him. And then they use motion and they use with alignment. Puka is going to get so many favorable matchups, and he was wearing them out. A lot of digs, slants. They get him a bubble. Working in the seams. I referenced the hit that he took. Like he's got a lot of favorable space. And the good news is Davante Adams still found a way to make plays. Gets a back shoulder. He turned Stingley around a little out route late in this game, showing you that he's still got that route running ability to be able to separate. And he ain't going to see many Derek Stingleys on the schedule this year. So they've got ways to utilize both these guys. But after we were there at that practice, Buck, I came away thinking, man, Davante Adams is going to end up out targeting and out producing Puka. I mean, I just think with the matchups Puka is going to get, they're going to be so much more favorable that he's going to have a more productive year.
The funny thing about all of it, DJ, is I was in the camp that I thought Davante Adams was slipping when I looked at him first with the Raiders and then with the Jets. I didn't see the same explosiveness that I saw from a player that dominated in Green Bay. But I don't know what is going on in LA. Like if he's sipping some water from the fountain of youth, because he does look like a more dynamic and explosive player than he's looked like in recent years. And in watching that practice that we saw together and then watching him play, you can already see how Sean McVay is going to tap into some of his creative route running ability to create explosive plays for this offense.
Hey, no doubt. Let's get to these last couple games here. Rhett, we go to Vegas and New England. Yeah. Disappointed with New England on that side of things, but let's start with the good stuff with Vegas.
Yeah, it was kind of, one of the things I really wanted to see here on both sides was like, all right, how are the Patriots going to utilize one of the stories of the preseason in TreVeyon Henderson? And then how are the Raiders going to defend it? Because they're watching that preseason tape too. And it was clear they wanted to get TreVeyon the ball and let him work with some of that explosive ability that he has. Honestly, I come away like feeling very encouraged for the Raiders on defense, right? I thought they dealt with that very well. Isaiah Polamau was a monster in this game. The way
he's a good player.
Yeah. Reed, that's a draft report to look at down the road here. Reed recognized trigger and tackle on TreVeyon was on one play in particular when he comes from about 20 yards deep and makes a stop on TreVeyon Henderson. Really, really good player in open space. I think right either for a loss or no gain. It was really impressive. Devin White was a revelation for the Raiders in here. I mean, he made a ton of tackles, was in on a ton of plays. For a guy that's bounced around a lot, maybe finds a home here with Patrick Graham and the Raiders defense. So that was kind of what I thought was cool. And again, I think we're going to see Ashton Genty get better on the offensive side of things. Geno played really well, I thought. Brock Bowers' injury thing is something we're all going to be following here moving forward, but he was a force. I just like to go back to the initial point. I was expecting a little more from Josh McDaniels and from New England with TreVeyon Henderson. They had one play in short yardage where he's in a full house backfield and he gets the edge, and it was kind of a cool design. I just didn't. A lot of it was just like a pass pro. You're not challenged. Delay release. Just didn't see that it was like he was a main focus of the game plan.
It's funny because my focus would go back to the Raiders and Pete Carroll and Pete Carroll's program. And so you talk about Devin White, you talk about young players showing up. This is what Pete Carroll has done, whether it's at USC or stepping into the league with the Seattle Seahawks. This is what they do. They take on reclamation projects. They somehow pump them full of belief. They give them opportunities, and those guys pay them back in turn by playing well. This is what the Raiders traditionally have always done way back in yesteryear when Mr. Davis was around. They were always a band of cast-offs and misfits that they would kind of put together, and they would find a way to win. To me, even though Pete Carroll is 73, he's the right coach for this team at this time. Having an adult in the room, someone who wins, someone who has the confidence, but also has a program that kind of takes them there. I think you could see all that. Now, I don't know what it means for the Raiders in terms of in this division where they end up, but I certainly feel like if I'm a Raiders fan, at least we look like a professional outfit that can compete and eventually find a way to be a contender.
From the Raiders side of things, hey, not a surprise. The offense is going to go through Brock Bowers. It still is. He's their best football player. Ashton Genty. I haven't got a chance to go through the cut-ups yet with him to watch all of his stuff and just to look at him specifically. While I was on the phone with Baldy this morning, he was talking about how nice of a job he did in pass protection, which is great to see. So that's added value there. I still feel the same about this Raiders team. I think Geno is still a really, really good player. I think they've got to stay healthy. They've got 4 or 5 guys. If they can keep these star guys healthy, they're going to be in it and they're going to be competitive. And I'm going to see them on Monday night. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they look like there. All right. The last one here, Arizona and New Orleans. I'll be honest with you, positively, Buck, New Orleans more competitive than I thought they would be. So that's a good thing.
That is a really good thing. And I'll give Kellen more credit when it came to picking the quarterback. And I'm not saying Spencer Rattler was great, but having been there for the New Orleans Jags game in preseason, it was pretty obvious that Spencer Rattler was the better quarterback at the time. Kellen didn't succumb to the pressure of, hey, we picked this guy. We picked him with the expectation that he was going to be the starter. He stayed true to that. And then what Kellen does, as all great coaches do, you try and find a way to shape the offense around the talents of the quarterback and see if they can get it going. Wasn't great yet, but the creativity, the adaptability, the ability to adjust to what you have, Kellen Moore certainly has that. And as he continues to grow as a coach, that offensive mind with him also learning how to manage the entire operation is going to help the New Orleans Saints get back on track.
Yeah, they've got to find a little bit more again on the run game. 46 attempts for Rattler, completes a little over 50% of those. I was like you a little bit encouraged that they were fairly competitive there. I mean, Juwan Johnson catches that touchdown, and we're talking about chance to win a game in overtime. Which
they only got sacked by once. And he didn't throw any picks. Well, that's the ball 46 times. Like that alone, I was like, that's encouraging.
Well, that's the strength of this team without question is that offensive line. Like that's a good, Kelvin Banks is a good player. Like they've got first round picks all over the place up there. But I think on the Cardinals side of things, kind of intrigued to see how Trey Benson works his way a little bit more into the game plan. He was kind of like hit or miss last year. It was mostly James Conner's show. Had a little bit more even split of the carries, and obviously Conner's going to get all the goal line touches here. But Benson had an explosive 35-yard run in this one. Just something to kind of follow as we go forward with the Cardinals, who on defense played really well.
Yeah, going back and watching Marvin Harrison stuff too, they're figuring out how to use him properly, get him on the move, and they were more efficient. I remember last year, there was games, I swear, I'd go through the targets, I'm like, oh my gosh, he had 13 targets and 4 catches. I think he was
sounds like Malik Neighbors this week.
Oh, man, poor guy. Yeah. And I say that because he's on my fantasy team. But I think it was, I had it here, it was like 6 targets maybe for Harrison. Yeah, see, he caught 5 of 6 targets, 5 for 71 and a touchdown, and they kept him on the move, and he looked more comfortable there. I still don't know that I'm going to be a little bit disappointed in terms of just, I don't think you're going to see him as a full route tree guy, like as someone who's elite getting in and out of breaks, but he's still so strong and big and physical and straight line fast. He could be a really, really good player, and they're figuring out how to use him. So good win for the Cardinals, but the Saints, they put up a fight. I thought they might get run out of the stadium. So that's why I was encouraged from the Saints side of things. All right, boys, we got to wrap this thing up. This has been fun. A little cleanup. We did a cleanup on aisle 6.
Clean out.
That's from Mr. Mom, which I'm sure 3 people that are listening to this have actually seen that movie. It's a fantastic Michael Keaton. Anyways, that's going to do it for us. We'll see you next time right here on Move the Sticks.